Hello again. We are moving on. Today we're going to be looking at recreation and physical activities, which is part of our lesson 7 in our personal and community health unit. To begin, let's do a little review. Last time when we were talking about cardiovascular health, we talked about its importance, the importance of having physical activity in order to keep our cardiovascular health in good condition. This is because our heart rate will increase with physical activity, which helps us burn off the calories. It also reduces the risk of heart disease. In fact, the Centers of Disease Control recommends that everybody gets 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous activity every single day. So on your guided notes page, take a moment and make a list of the physical activities that you do during 1 week and how long that you do them for. So it might be that you have a dance class and it lasts 30 minutes long, or maybe it's PE and you know that you do fitness for 15 minutes a day. So write down those activities on your guided notes page. Once you get your list complete, then look at all of your activities and how many minutes per day and see if you are meeting those time requirements that the CDC recommends. That's 60 minutes a day for 7 days. I also want you to look at the intensity levels and think about what intensity level that you're working at and if you're reaching that desired amount. So that would be a difference between the light activities such as walking versus moderate and vigorous activities that raise your heart rate. When talking about physical activity, we can describe physical activity as a couple of different categories. One would be active transport. So this is any form of human-powered transportation. You're getting yourself from one place to another on using your own muscle and willpower. Second, we have recreation and leisure. So these activities are active, but they don't require a whole lot of effort or strain on the body. They don't usually raise your heart rate to a significant level, and we actually consider these a level 1 to 3 on an intensity scale of 1 to 10. Moderate activities are going to be ones that make your heart, lungs, and muscles work harder than leisure activities do. You often start to notice a breathing rate difference and also your heart rate difference. So you might be breathing faster and your heart rate beating more times per minute. These are activities that are in the level 4 to 6 of that intensity level. You're still pretty comfortable at moderate level, but you will start noticing those physiological changes. The last level is vigorous. This is where your heart, lungs, and muscles start to work very hard. It becomes uncomfortable sometimes to exercise at this level. Talking might become a little bit more difficult, but you'll still be able to say a whole sentence. This is an activity, an intensity level of 7 or higher on that scale of 1 to 10. So let's look a little more closely at those rates of perceived exertion. So again, down at the bottom, the 1s, 2s, and 3s, those are very light activity. This might be, something like very light would be your video gaming, watching TV, and so forth. Then 2s and 3s, you can maintain it for hours, carry on a conversation. This might be your leisure walk. 4 to 6 is when you start to breathe a little heavier. Conversations might become a little shorter. You might be comfortable, but you might start to see some challenges in your activity. And then you start to see it gets more vigorous. 7 and 8, breathing starts to get even shorter. By 9, you're finding it really hard to be able to speak words. And by 10, you're really maxing out the capacity of your heart's ability. So, when you're rating your activity level, keep that in mind. Some of you might be saying moderate when it should be on the light side, or vice versa. So going back to active transport, again, this is any type of human-powered transportation. This can be done at any intensity level. So walking, we could do at a level 1, level 2, very leisure, casual activity. But you could also walk at a very fast rate and get the heart rate up and move it into the moderate rate. And then you could be a speed walker that could even take it up to an even higher rate. So active transport can be a great way to get some of those physical activity minutes in by incorporating that into our routine versus using public transportation or vehicles and so forth. There's a lot of benefits to using active transport. Health benefits provide opportunities to be physically active. So again, we're working on reducing those risks of heart disease. Social, in terms of social health, we have access to a lot of different people and social interactions. So active transport can really help in those in the social health department as well. Transportation, it helps to reduce road congestion. So we have less vehicles on the road when people are using active transport, reduces that congestion. And environmentally, it comes right along with that. With fewer cars, then you start to contribute less of the greenhouse gas emissions. So we start to improve our environment and air quality. Economic, it saves money on gas and parking. So there's a lot of different benefits that we can see from active transport. So think for a minute, where does Kiss and Ride fit into this topic? Many of you might use Kiss and Ride lines for your parents to drop you off in the morning. Does this mean that you're using active transport? Not quite. You could probably reduce some of these, some of the emissions in the air from our vehicles by having you walk to school instead of your parents driving you to school. There are safety tips to consider when you're using active transport. Just like in the morning when you come to school, we have a crossing guard there, we have flashing lights to help reduce the speeds of cars, and there's crosswalks and sidewalks to help keep you safe as you come to school each day. So some of the things that you should keep in mind are to be safe and be seen. Wearing light colors, reflective materials, being in well-lit areas, or even having lights on your body or on your bike to be able to be more seen by others around you. You also need to be aware of your surroundings. Know what's around you. If you're walking in a parking lot, make sure you're looking around to see if there's someone in the car. Is that car about to back out? You want to make sure you're aware because there's a lot of blind spots for people that are sitting inside of a car, and you don't want to be caught in one of those spots and then get hurt. Use crosswalks. Drivers are more mindful to look for you in a crosswalk than just in the middle of a street crossing. So be careful and always use designated areas to cross so that you make yourself more visible. And then ditch the distractions. I see this all the time. People texting, walking, got their earbuds, their AirPods in while they're walking, so they can't hear things around them, and they're not seeing what's around them either because their senses are all directed to their technology and not about what's around them. So put those things away until you get to your destination and then, catch up on all that social media. Some other considerations are to use sidewalks. Make sure you're far enough away from a road or traffic. Use marked crosswalks and paths. So like we said, at this intersection in front of our school, we have very well marked crosswalks there. Appropriate signs for traffic. So pay attention to the signage. Note which direction cars are going. Make sure you're paying attention to the rules of the traffic around you. Make sure that you're following the crossing signals that are given. If there's a walk or do not walk sign, make sure you're using the appropriate action. Again, drivers are also paying attention to that too, and they know when the crosswalk should be clear. You don't want to be caught in the crosswalk when it's a do not walk sign. Using curb ramps and paying close attention that you're in a safe community, and looking for areas that have the least amount of traffic to do your active transport. So today in class, we have two different activities that are going to happen. They're both sort of short, but you're going to be working in groups for both of them. The first one, you're going to start off in a group of 4 or 5 students, and I've already made those groups, so you'll see those posted in the room. And then with those groups, you're going to be given a set of scenarios. So there's 4 scenarios, one on each card. And then on those cards, you're going to read through them together as a group, see what each person, so you have like a client on each card with the person that describes their activity level. And then each person's going to choose one of those cards. Once you have your own card, then you're going to look at the card, answer the questions that are there, and create a 7-day activity plan. But you want to make sure that plan is realistic to the person that's on the card. So pay attention to the details that are given to you. You want to create something that's of interest and adequate and doable for them to do. And then lastly, you want to make sure that it meets that requirement of 60 minutes a day, 7 days a week. So once you complete your card, you share your information with those in your group, and you can all compare your results, make sure you feel confident all 4 cards are done correctly. Then you're going to bring those cards to me, and I'm going to look over your group's work. And once I see that you have a good idea of those physical activity requirements and how to use active transport to meet those requirements or other activities and sports, then we're going to move on in your group, and you're going to go to the next activity, which is where you are going to be planning out some of those active transportation routes. So somebody can get from their new home, a new family just moved into the neighborhood, and they don't know where anything's at or how to get to them safely. So you're going to take a Google map and you're going to map out the different places that they might want to go, and then highlight the path on the map to show the pathway that they would go, and then the means that they might use to get there. So if it's in a route that's easily walked, you might indicate that this is a good walking path because it has sidewalks and it's well lit and has crosswalks and so forth. If it's an area that maybe a bicycle might be the best, a preferred way to transport there, then you'll indicate that in your path. So as a team, your team is going to design 4 different safe routes to 4 different locations for this new family. So you can, again, divide this up. Each person work on one different map, or you can take different roles. You might say that one person's doing all the mapping and highlighting, another person's going to be marking crosswalks and other safety features. Another person, might have a different role in there. So you can divide up the work by splitting up the maps or by splitting up the job roles. And then the last thing you need to do is when you have all 4 routes planned out on your maps, you're going to post them up on the board and then grab a sticky note or 2 and you're going to start writing feedback for other groups and their notes. Once you notice that your group of maps has received 3 sticky notes of feedback, then you can take your maps back to your desk, make any final edits, and turn them in. So that'll be the end of that activity. Last thing is your exit ticket. It's again posted on Google Classroom as usual, but this one, it's all a self-reflection. So what you're doing here is just thinking about what are those activities that you like to do, what are the benefits that you get from them, or any of those activities active transport, and maybe you have some ideas now of how you can increase the number of minutes that you exercise to meet those CDC requirements. So if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, you can go ahead and get started.